This week, what happens when you click with someone right away, but then it's over before it really started, and without any explanation? Also, why do so many of us end up dating the same type of person over and over again? Is our picker really broken, or does it go deeper? Welcome to the talking phase. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Talking Phase podcast. My name is Tom, coming to you from my studio here in frigid Salt Lake City. And as always, I am joined by my great friend and co-host, Pam. Pam, what's happening with you?
Well, it has been really cold in North Carolina too. We don't normally get down to the 20s at night in December, but we've had like 4 nights where we've been down to the 20s, and it hasn't hit 50 all week until
Oh,
today, and then tomorrow it goes back to highs of the 40s. So, it is also cold here. Maybe not snowing, but very cold. But the house smells good. Today I ran some errands and did some shopping, and then I came home and started baking because I have a lot of parties this weekend. So,
what are you baking? I didn't think you were a baker.
listen, I can bake. I can't cook very well, but I can bake. I can follow instructions. Today I made 2 pumpkin pies, an apple pie, and a chocolate chess pie. So, I feel like I have accomplished a very large goal for myself of making sure that everybody will have at least one sweet that comes from me at these parties this weekend. That doesn't mean that they will taste good, but I will bring them.
They
And
will be
so,
sweet. If nothing else, they will be sweet.
yes, they will be edible. I am actually excited to eat them. I made an extra pie to have here. So, I have an extra pumpkin pie in my house too. I love December. I can justify eating pumpkin pie breakfast, lunch, and dinner if I want to,
That's awesome. That's
but
great.
not much more going on. Just a ton of shopping, getting ready for the holidays like everybody is, I'm sure.
Well, that's great. So, Brian, haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. Well, I mean, I talk to you all the time, but in here on the show, we haven't heard what's going on with you. I mean, what's happening?
Tis the season. So right now, just enjoying having a 20-month-old who is just soaking in Christmas. She's also convinced that along with Santa coming, that the Grinch will also be coming. To which I had to remind her that's not a necessarily a good thing, but it's the holidays. So yeah, just enjoying the cold temperatures like you, Tom, but getting ready for the holidays to really kick in.
Outstanding. Well, I'll tell you what, you guys, I told you before we started, I woke up this morning with a little bit of a cold, so I apologize if my voice is off a little bit. This is an unsponsored episode, but if you need a throat lozenge, Fisherman's Friend is the greatest one out there. They're the worst tasting, but they're the most effective. So there you go. I wish
So
they should
noted.
sponsor us.
I am just getting over that cold, so I do not feel at all happy that you now have to suffer through it because it was 2 long weeks of not being able to speak really, which
Yeah.
probably a lot of people really like that, but I'm not one of them.
Well, we muddle through, right? Because we're
Yes.
professionals, damn it.
Hey, it's December. I was sick all through Thanksgiving. We're supposed to be merry. I was hosting all those people. I am just happy to be on the mend and hopefully can stay that way through December.
So Pam was patient zero for everybody in North Carolina that's sick now.
Well, yeah, somebody gave it to me, so I couldn't have been patient zero.
That's okay. That's true.
It's the
Well, I'll
monkey.
tell you what, you guys, I cannot believe I have now been in Utah for close to 5 weeks. It's been 4.5 weeks since I moved out here, and it has been a crazy, crazy month. As you know, if you've been listening to the show, I wasn't happy about moving back to Utah. This was not my idea. It took a little bit of convincing from my boss. But it's been good. Spent a bunch of time with my kids since I've been here, which is obviously awesome. If you've been listening to the show, you know I've met, well, not really met. She's been a friend of mine for more than a decade, a platonic friend for about a decade. I've been hanging out with this lady. We call her Laura. Been to several concerts and movies and done a bunch of Christmas shit. And it has turned into more than a friendship, which is awesome. It's not why I moved here.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's definitely not why I moved here. But she's great. And so far, and again, you guys all know that I've got a list of must-haves and deal breakers. And as of today, she checks every box on the list. And time will tell if one of those gets unchecked, or maybe I'm rose-colored glasses or something. But it dawned on me the other day. In fact, I think it dawned on me during a conversation I had with you, Pam, that she's different. And I mean that in a good way, but at the same time, she's,
Some people might not think that's such a great. She's different. We won't.
yeah,
Maybe she doesn't listen to the show.
well, she's not, and I'm putting air quotes for those who are not watching the show. She's just not my type, meaning she's not the same type of person that I have traditionally gone out with. And I think that's a good thing. I really do. And so it got me thinking. And when we, decided on what we want to talk about on this show, this is kind of what we want to talk about, is about this whole type thing. Right. And so I want to talk about, do we really have a type? We said in the teaser, is our picker broken, or are we just dating our type? Really?
Right.
And I want to talk about, do we have a type? Is that really a thing? Then I want to ask, what makes a type? What does it mean when you say you're dating the same type person? And then I want to see if we can talk about, is it a good idea to branch out? Or is it better to say, look, I'm comfortable with this type? And again, I'm using the word type. I don't know if there's a better word. I'm open to that debate as well. But so let's start with that first one. I'm curious in your opinion on these things. Do you think that that having a type is actually a thing?
Well, what's funny to me is that even as you were saying that, I was thinking we are brought up thinking he's my type, she's my type. Oh, I'm not going to go after her. She's not my type. And I don't know where it all started. And I don't know if it's really a thing anymore. I think based on my own personal journey and those of people that I know, my friends, people that I know that are single, I don't think that any of us are dating within our type, so to speak. For me, I think that the only thing that I ever really felt was my type was somebody who was my height or taller than me. And so I have kind of put myself into a box my whole entire life and only wanted to date men that made me feel, let's say, smaller, for lack of a better word. I don't like to date somebody who has a body type that makes me feel bigger than they are. I want to be the more feminine, the more fragile, even though I don't like that word, of the two people in a relationship. And so for me, that usually comes in a big package. And so for me, my type has always
Big
been
package.
somebody. Yeah, well, yeah.
That's what you
Someone
said.
with a big
I
package.
like, yes, I like it. I like a big package, period. But like, 6 feet tall is only an inch taller than me. And so as I've gotten older and, on and off the dating apps, I've learned that if you put 6 feet tall on a dating app, you eliminate 75% of the men out there. So then I lowered it to 5'10". And of course, my type, when I would go to meet somebody that said they were 5'10", they were really 5'9" or 5'8.5". And so I really do feel like my type is somebody who makes me feel more feminine. And I don't know that that has a height requirement on it, but it's definitely a feel you get with somebody where you want them to like come up behind you and wrap their arms around you and you kind of look up at them or you just feel that bulk, that man. And so that's been my type. But I don't think we should have a type.
Well, what's interesting about that is what you just described as what you want is literally one of my biggest fears, is to have some big guy come up behind me and wrap his arms around me.
So I won't do that at our next company get together. Noted.
Oh God. You know what, Brian? Please do that for me. I know you're a big guy. Give Tom a taste of what I'm looking for. Yeah. I think that we are brought up believing we have a type, but I think we outgrow that perspective rather quickly in our 40s and 50s. When we find ourselves single again, we realize that our type is going to mean that we're single forever.
Well, as we prepared for this, I went out and looked up an article in Psychology Today, and I promise you, I am not a psychologist. And this is literally the first time I've ever been on the Psychology Today website, but it was a fascinating article that I read. And it says that the idea of having a type has become very popular. like you were saying, I think we're all kind of brought up to believe we have a type.
Right.
But they said it's a very much understudied phenomenon, meaning they aren't sure that there really is a type.
Right.
And what they were talking about, though, that I found really interesting is that, and this kind of goes into, what is a type? That's kind of that second thing I wanted to talk about. But they were talking about how if you are like a paddle boarder, and you're out paddleboarding and you meet someone who's a paddleboarder, well, they might be your type just because they have similar interests. And usually people who are paddleboarders fit into a certain
Healthy
personality type.
lifestyle too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so is that part of the type? And then like if your friends set you up with someone, um, well, if they're your friend and their friend, well, chances are you have similar personalities, um, to have that same friend group. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
I
that
think that if your friend sets you up with somebody, he's almost never your type.
I
It's
yeah,
somebody
I
it's somebody they think that you should like, but, it's funny, I always go back to that original episode where somebody said to me, "You should lower your standards."
right.
So, is your type what you believe your standards are? Are they the same thing? Is your list just a definition of your type? Because if somebody checks all your boxes and they have all of these qualities that you want them to have, then aren't they actually your type?
I thought about that. Obviously, we talk about my list quite a bit because it has been a big feature here. But I look at it and I go, I look at my list and I go, okay, so I put on there she's not a smoker. Is that a type?
Well,
Um,
yeah, my type wouldn't smoke either, so I think that that's part of being a type. Maybe
yeah,
your
and
type
I
isn't
think that's the
one or
thing.
two things.
I don't think there's any one definition. I think that's where the challenge comes in for this, because it could be like you talked about height. It could be waist. I mean, weight is what I mean
Wait,
by that.
right,
Waist,
wait.
size, race, hair style, hair color, hair length.
Oh, yeah, you're getting into a lot of this. When you ask me type, I think that me bringing up height really it is a very superficial thing. Even if it's important to me, it's still something on the outside. Um, height, weight, I prefer somebody with a little bit of a dad bod. I do not like a thin man. I like a man who, yeah, has a little bit of, he can be in good shape, but quite honestly, I like a guy that has a few extra pounds on him, mainly because if I gain a few extra pounds, I don't want to feel like I'm bigger than he is or he's in better shape than me. So I prefer to be in better shape. So anybody listening to this podcast knows that my standards are not like some gorgeous GQ model who, eats healthy all of his meals and, doesn't drink and, exercises every day. If I do those things, that's my prerogative. But my type is on the outside, just somebody who's bigger than me and somebody that I'm attracted to. So somebody that's nice looking. But on the inside is a whole different thing. And your list is a lot more things about what's on the inside of a person. Do they like your sense of humor? Somebody has to like to hear that's what she said or that's what he said after a lot of different sentences to be your type.
Absolutely.
And right. So like, yeah, that makes somebody your type. For me, the man has to have a good sense of humor, but he also has to be super kind. And I've learned that about myself. The person that I end up in a relationship with, if I ever wind up in another relationship, has to be kind to me, which is great and goes without saying, but has to also be kind to everybody around me, strangers, my friends, my family. Genuine kindness to me has risen to like the top 3 most important things in somebody that I would be looking for. And it's possible there is nobody that's that kind out there, but at least as kind as I think I am to others.
I think I think it was on our TikTok channel. I got in some argument. I think that's the only place I can think of where it
No
would be.
way.
Some lady, yeah,
You?
some lady said that she's a sapiosexual,
Right.
um, which means she's only attracted, and she flat out said, "I'm only attracted to intelligence."
Mm.
And I said, and I think I wrote, "So you think Stephen Hawking is hot as hell, right?" Um, and because and I tried to get her to explain, how do you choose? You're in a room full of 20 people. You don't know any of these people. How are you attracted to their intelligence without actually talking to them? I mean, it was basically that argument that physical always comes first. You're going to
Mm,
see a person, you're going to be attracted to that person, whether it's part of your type or not. I only like brunettes, I only like blondes, or whatever it is. And
right.
then you're going to find out if they have the intelligence, which could be part of your type. And again,
Right.
not everyone cares about intelligence. In fact, some men specifically want dumb women.
Oh,
Um,
shame.
well, I know,
Shame.
but it's not me.
No, I know that.
Don't shoot the messenger. But
Oh, I know that.
your type could be, I like blondes with big tits that are smart as hell and drive a Corvette.
It's
I
like
mean,
a
you could
walking
get
oxymoron.
right, exactly. So, I mean, that could be your type, right? But finding it is the hard part.
Well, and if you put yourself into a box like I have, and I have had many conversations with myself. You should see that. We just talk, me and myself and I say to myself, and I do believe this 100%. If I was to meet somebody organically, probably through my social event, through my social group, which I talk about all the time, if I was to meet somebody who wasn't bigger than me, wasn't taller than me, but had a really big personality, was really kind, I found them physically attractive, I believe that I would look past the size requirement that the person would need to have for somebody who was kind, great sense of humor, you know, ready for a relationship, treated me really well. I believe that that would not be as important to me. But when I think of type, I think that I automatically think of dating apps where all I'm doing is people shopping and all I'm doing is looking at the picture and then going right below it to see how tall they are. And then if they check those two boxes, then I'm going on and reading the rest of that profile. But I eliminate a lot of people who are 5'8", 5'9", who might be fantastic people, but they live in my area. So if I run into them at an event, at a bar, at a club, at a party, at the gym, and they talk to me and it's a good conversation and it leads to a date, then that would be fine with me. But on dating apps, I do think that we still have a type, and it's generally looks, height, and money, I think, when it comes to type. I mean,
Oh no, that's
somebody
interesting.
yeah, because we haven't brought that up in this, and it just occurred to me that I do look at that. Not that they're wealthy, but I don't wanna have to support them.
That is fascinating. That's interesting. And I'm gonna make a plea right now to those listening, men and women out there. What are the things that make up your type? Because um again, I know you, Pam, well enough to know that you're not looking for the wealthy guy. I get it. But there are a lot of women out there who specifically are looking for a guy. And I know women say that men are too. And again, I've never dated a man, so I don't know. But I've met women who are looking for a guy to take care of them financially.
Yeah, I can understand in today's economy, they probably need it. Um, it's sa I'm so grateful that that doesn't have to be something that I'm looking for in order for me to survive, but at the same time, it hasn't made dating any easier, not needing somebody for their money.
Right. Well, so let's get to that final thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the idea of branching out.
Okay.
Um, so there was an episode of Seinfeld where George said, "Look, I'm trying to do everything to meet someone, and it never works. So I've just decided to do the exact opposite."
Mhm.
And so he got up to leave from the table at the restaurant, and he walked over to this woman and introduced himself, and he goes, "I'm unemployed. My name's George. I'm unemployed, and I live with my parents." And she looks at him and she goes, "That is so refreshing." And they started up a relationship.
Only on TV.
Yeah, exactly. Only
He's
on
a
TV.
short, bald man who walked up to a woman and said, "Listen, I'm very poor. Would you like to go out?"
Oh, and I live with my parents.
Oh, right. The
But
kicker.
so I'm going to read this quote from the article. So about the idea of branching out from your
Okay.
your type. It says, having a current partner who is decidedly different from an ex-partner can also be a goal. You broke up with that person, so why would you want to date someone similar? In fact, when people reflect on a recent breakup, they often say they learned what they don't want in a future partner.
That's astoundingly accurate.
But then I
Astounding.
mean, yeah, why would I want to be with someone like them? But then we all do it.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that because I mean, like, I think of my ex-husband and I think of my last relationship that I was in, and I have completely revamped things that I didn't even realize how important they were to me now moving forward. And will it mean that it's more difficult to date? Possibly. My ex-husband had a need to always be right, no matter what. I mean, like, you hear this all the time where somebody says, I could say the sky is blue, and he would say it was purple or orange, and it could be clear blue forever. That was most of my marriage. He
Mm.
was always right. And then when you had an argument, you had to admit that you were wrong or the argument didn't go away. And so by the end of the marriage, I was just automatically admitting I was wrong all of the time
Oh,
because I didn't want to be mad. I didn't want to stay in a fight. And I would never, ever do that again. So I think that we leave that relationship where damage is done and we've learned a lot of lessons. Yeah, maybe he was 6'3", and by the time we got divorced, he was probably 250 pounds. So he had a, super dad bod. I wasn't not attracted to him physically, but it hasn't changed the fact that I enjoyed the fact that I felt small when I was with him. And let me tell you, at 5'11", you rarely feel small. But I know for a fact that I would never date somebody who wasn't willing to agree to disagree, who didn't believe in compromise, who didn't believe, and in my last relationship, there was a big black and white difference where he would see things black and I would see things white. And I was constantly trying to say to him, can't we live in this gray area where maybe we're both right? But people who are black and white are black and white. And me wanting to change somebody or believing that I can change somebody because I think it's better to live in a gray world doesn't matter, because people aren't going to change. We're in our 50s. Like, we're not going to become completely different human beings for somebody else.
it sounds dangerously close, Pam, to you actually creating a list that you won't date someone who is black and white.
Yeah, but I would never write that on a list. See, to you, this list is black and white. This list is, these are the things that I need in a relationship. And if I don't get those things, I am ending this relationship or this dating scenario. For me, if I'm dating somebody and he's very black and white, and I have conversations where we don't see eye to eye on that thing, then there needs to be a compromise, or I'm just going to move along. I mean, but I don't think it's a
Yeah, that's called a
list.
list.
No, I don't think so. I think it's called a relationship. I think it's
Well,
called
it's just
no.
funny to me that you say, I will never do this, I will never do this, I will never do this, but that's not a list.
I think that you're confusing a list with red flags and deal breakers. We all have red flags and deal breakers. Red flags being things that we see in a relationship that we're willing to take the time to see if those red flags become orange and then maybe possibly green over time. And then we have deal breakers where the red flag stays a red flag and you cannot get past it and the relationship ends. And that's that. So maybe red flags and deal breakers are the equivalent of your list, but they're
Mhm.
not written down. They're not stringent. Like I just said, I like to date somebody who makes me feel smaller. I like to date somebody 6 feet tall or taller, but I will date somebody shorter if I feel like we're physically compatible, even if they're shorter than me. And that's living in the gray. That's not having a list. So you and I need to agree to disagree.
We will agree to disagree. Okay. Well, so let's what's the bottom line for you? Is there a type, and should you try to break out of it, or is having a type just a great thing?
I think we all have a type, whether we want to admit it or not, but it's in our head. For most of us, if I say that I love tall, brunette, funny men, and I meet a guy who's tall and blonde and isn't that funny, but thinks I'm funny, it's still a win. So I think that types are overrated. And I think that if you're trying to find somebody who is your type, you're almost definitely going to wind up single, or at least it's going to take you a lot longer. And maybe that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it's here I've kind of broken out of my type a little bit.
Why? You never told us, why is she not your type?
It's more the physical side. She's very small, very tiny. Um, she looks young, even though she's my age or very close to my age, but she looks really young. I think it just comes down to it's probably more that she doesn't look my age, and I almost feel like I'm dating someone much younger, and I've never been that guy. I've never been the guy that dates young women.
But how old is she?
She'll be 54 this week.
So she's almost your age.
I know, but anyone who's seen her goes, holy crap, she looks. I mean, I was talking to a friend yesterday, said she looks 32. And she really does.
Oh,
She looks
I'm
very
pretty
young.
sure I said she looks 32.
was
Yeah.
it you, Brian? Did you say it?
I mean, I'm definitely Tom's friend, but no, 100%. Like, Tom, do not take this the wrong way. You are 1,000% batting out of your league.
Oh, I know.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. So there's no, by the
That's
way,
so funny.
all men bat out of their league.
Oh, 100%. My wife makes me look like I am a homeless bum.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all
Well,
it
it's
is.
mostly men in our age range. It just seems like a lot of the men have kind of given up on appearance, and they're just kind of comfortable with who they are, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But then there are men, I've dated plenty of men that were in their 50s or late 40s that, looked great. I mean, I guess it's just whatever that person deems acceptable for themselves, and that should be good enough. But I don't know that I believe that her looking young or being small, I mean, are those things that you would have not dated somebody in the past just because they were too short for you?
No,
It's the opposite of me.
no, it's not that I've not, I don't have any height requirements or anything like that. It's just when I've been out with people, it's just been, well, she's pretty small, or and I've never dated anyone who looked this young. So I don't know. I think it's just she doesn't fit the physical mold. I mean, I've not dated people I don't find attractive. I mean, I only date people I find attractive is a better way to say that. So it's not that I didn't find these other people attractive, but as we were going out, I'm like, yeah, there was something not right there. And so anyway, but now here I am with, what am I calling her? Laura.
Laura. And ironically, you probably put on your little reading glasses and look a little bit like her dad if she really looks like she's in her 30s.
No, I've seen a picture of her dad. I don't look like anything like him.
Oh,
But,
I don't mean literally her dad. I just mean like when you put on those reading glasses, it ages you. And she apparently looks so young that like it, maybe she has a little bit of a father. Oh, are you putting him on?
yeah. There you
See,
go.
you're so small on my screen. But if you're watching us on YouTube, you should leave them on for a few minutes. If you're watching us on YouTube, you should look at around 32 minutes, and Tom will put on his reading glasses, and they're the tiniest reading glasses I've ever seen. And
Oh no, you mean those? Those are my travel glasses.
oh,
Okay.
I mean, and they're adorable, but at the same time, they age you a little bit. And here she is looking so young, but
Yeah.
you don't look old. So I have a feeling that she probably just takes that as a huge compliment and appreciates it, and probably says, I don't look in my 30s.
Well, she does what everybody does when you get a compliment. They go, "Oh, come on,"
Right.
So,
Because that's what, if somebody told me, well, nobody has told me I look like I'm in my 30s. I get 40s, but I don't get 30s. But yeah, none of
okay.
us are
Yeah.
I don't know why we're not excited. I think we just don't believe people when they say it. But now that I've heard Brian say it, I think it must be true.
Yeah. She looks pretty young. Anyway, but that's all it is. It's just more of the and part of, by the way, there's my codependence right there. I don't want to be the guy that dates the 25-year-old women. I don't want to be, what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio.
But Tom Cruise, but how old she is. So this seems like a non-point almost, because she is your age. It doesn't matter how old she looks. Everybody wants to date somebody who looks great and young. So
Yeah.
pat
And
yourself on
she
the
does
back
both.
and just enjoy that.
Yep. That's what we're
Because
doing.
soon she's going to dump you for some 40-year-old
Yeah, exactly.
grandpa.
Yep.
All right.
All right, let's move on.
Oh, did you hear that? Mail came in. We were still talking.
You've got mail.
It's really here. All right, here we go on to the next segment. Dear Pam and Tom, there's this guy I met recently at an event. From the start, there was this spark. He was funny, charming, and seemed genuinely interested in me. We made plans to meet, and I was so excited in a way I haven't been for a very long time. I picked out what to wear, imagined what our conversation would be like, and even let myself think about where this could go. And I have been guilty of doing that, and it's so stupid to do before you meet somebody. But then he ghosted me. No text, no call, nothing. At
Asshole.
first, yeah, at first I told myself maybe something came up, but as hours turned into days, I had to face the truth. He just disappeared. Here's the thing though, I
Hmm.
still like him. I know that might sound foolish. Part of me keeps hoping there's a reason, an explanation, something that will make me feel less discarded. I wonder if he's thinking about me, if he regrets it, if he'll possibly reach out. And that's where I'm torn. If he does contact me, should I respond? Should I give him the chance to explain or just protect myself and move on? I know how rare it is to find someone that you genuinely click with. And so here I am, stuck between wanting to move on and hoping for a second chance. If you were me, what would you do? I'm seriously thinking about calling him or tracking him down to force him to talk. Sincerely, still hoping. Oof.
Oh,
Well, at least she met him at an event and not on a dating app, because on a dating app, you know, that happens to everybody, girl. But this is not that.
I, I,
The-
for me, the fact that she's even asking the question, and I apologize. How did she sign it? Still hoping.
Yeah.
It's you reek of desperation.
Oh,
And I don't. I'm sorry that's so harsh, but the so you meet him at an event. They didn't go on a date, right? They just met at some event.
yeah. Clearly, he asked for her number,
Hmm.
and um, there was a
Yeah, so
spark.
they've
He was
never been
sensing
out on
something.
on a date. They met at some event. I don't know what event it was. Maybe it's a I don't know. Anyway, they met at an
Well, it
event.
could be a goat event like my events. I mean, it could be anything. But clearly they spent let's assume that this first meet is like a first meet on a dating app. So you've matched with somebody and then you've gotten together and had great conversation. And you really feel like this could go somewhere. So because they've already actually had a first date, not officially, but like a first meet. And so
Okay, so
now,
we'll give it the same value as like a coffee date.
right, right, or cocktail, whatever.
Yeah. So you've been out and had a drink or had a coffee with them, and she's daring, as she said, to think where it might lead, which is that's cool. I think we all do that.
Of
Um,
course.
once you've clicked with someone. Um, so her questions were, what would you do? If you were me, what would you do? I'm thinking about calling him. Yeah, don't. If he wanted to talk to you, he'd be talking to you. If he wanted you to call him, he'd be calling you. I think this guy, maybe he just wasn't that into her as much as she was into him, obviously.
Right. I mean, like the worst part about a situation like this is that he asked for her number. So like he had this whole evening where they talked and they got to know each other and she felt this spark and assumed he was feeling it too. And then clearly she didn't say it, but if they made plans to meet, then he had to have asked for her number. To ghost, you have to have somebody's information. So he got her number and never used it. So I'm left wondering what kind of man spends an evening talking to a woman, making her believe that this is going to lead to something, even if it's just another date or a date. Um, and then ghosts, like what's in it for a guy to even bother doing that? Like, why didn't he excuse himself after talking to her for a little while when he realized that he didn't want to get to know her better? Why didn't he just excuse himself from the conversation and let her meet other people or talk to other people? My feeling is he monopolized that evening and gave her a reason to have that kind of crazy hope. So I have been out with friends in the past and met somebody and spent an evening talking to them, and maybe there was even a little bit of kissing, and maybe there was some kissing for her, she didn't say. Um, and we have talked about getting together again. And then I have never talked to them again. Luckily for me, it's not ever happened in a situation where I was like, punched in the gut when I didn't hear from them again. But I have been surprised. Um, and it's not something that it's happened this is before I was married. So over 20 years ago, I was younger. Um, and maybe I was a little bit more impulsive than I am now. But yeah, I've had that feeling after meeting somebody for one night. As a matter of fact, when I met my husband, it was on a blind date from a dating app. And we met at a bar and we sat there and we talked for like, I don't know, 2 hours. And I was blown away by him. And when he left to go home and I was with friends, so I stayed, I remember thinking, this is my person. This could
Mm.
be, I don't think I had been on 100 dates because it was the last day that I was going to stay on this dating app. I'd been on dating apps for probably 4 or 5 months at that point. I had been on like 100 dates and I didn't like anybody. And he was
Mhm.
the last person I met on the last day that I was going to use those dating apps. And it felt kismet. It felt like fate had kind of delivered him to me. And he asked for my number and he left. And I remember that feeling in my gut for the next day because I think he waited 2 days to call me. And I was positive that I had misread how strong that connection was. And so now I try to imagine in her perspective, if I had never heard from him again after feeling so strongly emotionally, what that would have done to my self-esteem, to my hopes, to my dreams. Um, and that's where she is right now. So I can understand how terrible that must feel.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess I look at it this way. I mean, what's her objective? Obviously, she had envisioned a future with this guy. Um, and have you seen that? What's that show, Landman, the new one that's out?
I was gonna text you and tell you I just finished it's so good.
Oh, I
I
love
just
it.
finished the second episode. Now I'm totally hooked. Maybe
Yeah,
I finished the
totally.
third. So
So,
good.
in fact, I think it was in episode 2. So you might remember this. He's having that talk with his daughter, and he says, "Every relationship is unsuccessful except for your last one."
Oh my God. Yes. It's such a great statement and it's so accurate.
Yeah.
Um,
And so I look at this and I'm going, okay, so what do you have to gain by tracking this guy down? What's her name? Still hoping. This guy, in my mind, and you might feel differently, there are 3 possibilities as to why he's ghosted her. One, he just wasn't into her and just was
right.
a good actor. And he's a douchebag, of course, for doing that. But
Right.
number 2, um, he's met somebody else.
Possibly.
Um, or number 3, he's literally hoping that she is so into him that she will take that initiative and track him down because he's a fucking narcissist. And that's like how he gets off on somebody going, oh, I really like this guy. So I'm going to find out. I am going to go after him.
Oh,
I
well,
don't,
number
I don't see
3
any
never
others.
occurred. Number 3 never occurred to me, but I did think that this is a guy that's in a relationship with
Mhm.
somebody and he's at this event and he probably really liked her and really felt like there was a spark and got her phone number and then he left that event and realized that he's not ready to give up on his current relationship or his current marriage or whatever the situation is. He's just not in a place to start a new relationship with somebody that he thinks could really be something because he's still involved with his current relationship.
Yeah. And when Laura and I started hanging out, and I use hanging out like not like the kids do. I mean, we were not dating when we first started spending
Right.
time together. Um, I had met this other lady. We'd been out once or twice, and she's really nice. Um, I wasn't feeling like a huge amount of chemistry, but it was kind of there, and so I was going out again. And then I started to feel that chemistry with Laura. And as soon as I started feeling that, I'm like, okay, I'm not that guy. I can't date like 2, 3, 4 women at a time. I don't know how
Right.
people do that. No judgment. I just can't do it. And so I sent a note to this other lady and just said, hey, nice meeting you. I'm out, nicer than that. But basically it was a quick text, and it's not like we were breaking up. I think we'd been out
Right.
twice or something. And that was before anything like really started to truly move with Laura. It was just there's clearly more potential here. So therefore that's where I'm going to put my focus. And maybe that's what this guy was doing, but he did it in a shitty way.
Right. Right. I mean, there's never a good reason to not tell somebody. And this goes beyond this email. There's never a good reason to not tell somebody when you're not interested anymore. To ghost somebody is the lowest form of scum on the planet. I mean, just to do, everybody has emotions and feelings, and to not care enough about, I don't care if you barely know that person. It
Mhm.
takes 1 minute to send a message. If you're not phone call people, then to send an email or to send a text and just say, listen, I'm just not feeling this, but I wish you luck on your journey, which is what I say to anybody I go on a date with, that when we leave, I'm not sure if I'm going to see them again. But then after I think about it and I know I don't want them to ask me out again, I send that message as soon as I realize that I don't want to go out with them again, because there's just no reason to disappear. I've never not replied to a text. I don't reply to DMs. So if you follow us on TikTok and you're one of 783 people who have sent me a message on Pam Navigating Life, I don't even open them, you guys. So like, some of the first lines that I can see in those messages, just wrong on every level. But I've never ever given anybody the impression that I'm looking for a private message on TikTok. Now, if it's Instagram or Facebook and you know me and you want to send me a private message, that's fine. I get those. I answer those. But don't ghost people, you guys. Once you've had a conversation and you know that somebody is interested in you, or you've led them to believe that there might be hope that you're going to go on a date at some point, don't do that unless you're sure. And when you're not sure anymore, just tell them, because at the end of the day, you're a better person for being honest. And not
Absolutely.
knowing sucks. And so my advice to her is simple. It is, move on. Don't track him down. When I was in high school or my 20s, I might have also, if I knew where they lived, driven over there and made them face me. But he doesn't owe you anything. You guys met at a party. He thought he was going to want to date you. He's a dick for ghosting you. But at the same time, whatever his reason is, you don't need that baggage, and you don't need that. You don't need to start something. Starting something on those terms is a recipe for disaster. So
Absolutely. My advice,
sorry.
let it go. You dodged a bullet.
But I'm so sorry that happened, and he sucks.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. All right.
That's that.
That's that.
We
Thanks,
solved
everybody.
ghosting. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Stop the ghosting.
Yes.
All right.
Well, thank you for your email, you guys. I love them. I read them. I got an email yesterday that I have read. I don't know if Tom's seen it or not, but it is, I don't know, it must be 4 pages long. This guy literally has told me about every single bad date that he has been on. But there's no question. It's just a biography. So don't send us messages like that. Send us your emails, ask for advice, ask us what we think of your scenario or your situation, anything we can help with, or in our case, not help with. We will try, but we are probably not going to read your 10 or 15 bad dating stories on the podcast. So the address is talkingphase@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. And again, I will reply to all of your emails and let you know when we will read them on the show, including that gentleman who I'm going to ask if he has a question when I reply to him.
Either that, or maybe I'll have to go read that. Maybe we can just read one of his bad dating stories and
Well, they're all short. I mean, we'll talk about it after the show, but don't forget to tell people to subscribe. Wow, I couldn't even get the word out. Did we do that
first
already?
day with a new mouth today.
Did we do that? Did we tell people to follow and subscribe yet?
I'm about to, so I hope everybody
Wow,
listening has taken that time to rate and review. You're telling your friends and family about us. You got to grow this audience. We have new episodes every single Friday. Pam curates awesome stuff on our social media. I suck at it. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Help us out. Like I said, rate and review. That is the single greatest thing you can do for us, is to rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to us now. So with that, unless Pam, you have something else.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for the comments on this last YouTube video. If you're watching us on YouTube, this last video got so many listens and people were fired up. So we got so many comments from people on that last video. So leave comments. You can comment on Spotify and on YouTube right at the end of the video. So
Love it. Okay, guys, until next week, this is Pam and Tom signing off.
stay warm out there. Have a great day, great week. Almost 2025. Have a great rest of your day, year, millennium.